So hello, everyone. Thank you for everyone to attend and to come to this 15th Fenix Infrastructure Webinar. Today we have with us our colleague from Cineca, from the Italian Supercomputing Center in Italy. We have Deborah Testi with us. So I'd like to welcome her today, and he will be our speaker today. So the session will be as follows. First, we'll introduce our speaker today, then we'll give the speech, and then finally we'll give the floor to everyone to make the possibility to make questions. For this, you have the question and answer option, and also the chat option. And finally, I'd like to remind all the attendees that this session is being recorded, and it will be available in the YouTube channel of the Human Brain Project. This link will be provided to you in an email that will be sent to you after the finalization of this webinar. So I'd like to share my screen at the moment now to welcome our speaker. So today we are basically having our 15th edition of the Fenix webinar, and the aim is to know how and when to access the ICEI resources. And for this, we have today Deborah Testi with us. So thank you, Deborah, for coming with us, and I'll give you actually the floor now. I stop sharing and I'll give you the possibility to share. Yeah.
So thanks for the kind introduction, Renata. I will now share my screen, hopefully. So just for you to be aware, as Renata said, while presenting, I will not be able to see the chat or questions, so we will address them after the talk. So so thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to give this webinar, which will be on how and when it's possible to access the ICEI resources. So the agenda of the presentation is following the few points. So first of all, a few words on what is the ICEI project, in case you don't know, and which are the resources and the services that are being provided, and which are the access mechanisms we put in place both for neuroscientists and for researcher in any other domain across Europe. And then we will have question and answers. So first of all, let's see what is ICEI. So ICEI, 5 European supercomputing center had agreed to work together to align their services and make them interoperable to facilitate the creation of what is called the Fenix infrastructure. The main point of this infrastructure is that the data services and data resources are very close to the computing resources, so they are very well in proximity and well integrated. So the ICEI project has been funded as part of the Human Brain Project to set up the first version of this Fenix infrastructure. As being part of the Human Brain Project, the first prime users of the infrastructure has been foreseen to be scientists from Human Brain itself. But as I mentioned before, this in reality is open to researchers of any domain across Europe, as you will see in a moment. So these are the 5 centers that are working together in ICEI to set up the first Fenix infrastructure. As I mentioned, they work together to harmonize and federate the services, so to be able to support a variety of science domain and workflows and research communities. So the ambition is to serve science domains in the best way, providing a set of diverse services that would enable collaborative research. We obviously, ICEI and Fenix leverage of national, European, and international funding programs to realize to put together the infrastructure. We can define three type of services that are being provided by ICEI. The first one are called user community services, which are the application and workflow that are being used for the execution of the actual research workflow and simulation that are needed from the research. We have platform services, which are community research infrastructure and operation and development. And then we have the so-called infrastructure services, which includes obviously all the backend resources in terms of computing, cloud, and storage, and also some federation layers like related to authentication and authorization mechanisms like the one provided by Gian. So going a bit more in detail on which are the services provided by ICEI, we have 5 categories. We have the scalable computing, which is the one used for massively parallel computation and simulation and for high throughput data analysis task. We have interactive computing resources and services to allow quick access to compute servers to make analysis or interactively visualize data or run some post-processing or pre-processing of the data. And we have also services for deploying virtual machines, which would allow to deploy services like image processing or neuromorphomic computing front-end services and anything that is needed by the user. Then we have the backend data repository, which is classified in 2 types. We have the active data repository, which is the storage that is very close to the computational resources or the interactive computing resources. It is normally used for storing temporary replicas of the data set or active data that are still being updated and changed. And the archival data repository, which is meant to store data for longer term with reliability and availability constraints, and is used for data that are not being regenerated oftenly and should be stored safely after the simulation and execution of the workflows. So if you are interested to know which is the amount of the different resources provided across different type of services and across the different size of ICEI, you can just go to the Fenix website and there is a summary table of the available resources. You can just click on the available resources. The resources are classified, as I said, based on the type of services. Type of service, so scalable computing or interactive, etc. You can see which is the site who is providing the resources, and together with the amount of total resources that are available and some technical information about the type of computing or type of nodes or the type of storage that is going to be provided. How is the allocation mechanism work? So as I already said, the infrastructure is open to any user at all level of their research, from young researcher to full professors, and of any scientific domain. The access is free of charge and is granted through an excellence-based peer review procedure, which is the one that is being that we took from the PRAISE experience. So the main aspect of the evaluation are obviously transparency, fairness, and confidentiality. Each proposal is assessed. Request for application for allocation is assessed both technically by the site who is going to provide the resources, and scientifically by scientific expert, which have no conflict of interest with the applicants and are completely independent from the Fenix infrastructure provider. So they are an independent panel that has been set up purposely to evaluate the proposal. So the type of allocation is different for human brain users or neuroscientists and for researcher at large. For HPP members and neuroscientists, we have a continuous call set up, while for the European researcher of any other domain, we rely on the collaboration with PRAISE, and we have quarterly calls that are open. I will now give few details on how the process works for each of those, and also some information on the type of information that we require applicants to put in the request in the project, and some advice on what should be addressed to have a successful proposal. So as I mentioned, for neuroscientists and human brain users, we have continuous call. And it is just asked for the neuroscientist to have work which contributes to some of the research topics and objectives of human brain in general, so like analysis of brain data, multi-scale models of the brain, simulation of brain function, or data analytics on brain-inspired computing. An online application system has been put in place, but you have here in the slide, and you will have also in the recording, the links to where you can learn more about the application process, and also the guide documentation on the tool that I will present in a moment. Applicants should target allocation for 12 months, not longer, even if renewal of application is possible. That is with a specific request, both in terms of time and number of resources that have been provided. Normally, the review process can take between 1 and 2 months of time. So that is just to give you a time scale on how long you will have to wait after submitting your request. As mentioned, we have set up this online tool for the application submission, where first, obviously, you are required to register, and you will receive an email with a link then to access the application, the page to create new application or finalize application that you already created in the past. Which are the information that you are requested to put in the project? First of all, a project summary, which basically is the scientific question we are trying to address and the scientific objectives of the work. Then obviously, which is the relation with respect to the human brain project objectives and goals, as I mentioned before. Obviously, if it is a request of extension, it is required to provide some information on the work that was done in the previous project and the results that have been obtained. Then there is a section where you can specify the methodology that you will follow during your project, the impact, the implementation plan, and all the details on how the project will be actually implemented. Then obviously you will have to specify which are the resources that you are requesting at which site, as you can see also in the snapshot here. You can request one type of resources, or also a combination of resources also from different sites. So it can be also a cross-site request. There is also a specific session in case you have to compile, in case you are thinking to process personal or sensitive data that obviously has some specific requirements. During the creation of the application, you can save and go back later. You can switch between pages, so it's very interactive and easy to use. And when you select finalize, the proposal is sent to the ICEI project management team that will start the process of the evaluation and then awarding of the project. As I mentioned, there are very detailed guidelines and user manual that you can refer to, but also the team is always available to answer a question if you have, and there is anything unclear. So, as I said, some advices on potential proposals that you are thinking of. First of all, we advise you to provide a self-contained information because you are also, and mainly for the scientific part, because the reviewer might want to have all the information easily accessible and clearly understandable without having to go to search for other information around. There is not a specification on the level of details you should provide. this really depends on the amount of resources you are planning to request. Obviously, if you request a huge amount of resources, a much more detailed proposal and work plan is expected with respect to if you are requesting very few resources. As I mentioned, you can request different type of services and resources, or even just one type. But if you request different type of resources, this is obviously positively considered, because the overall aim of the infrastructure is to provide a set of federated services. The scientific review is foreseen in this case only for proposals that are requesting more than 5% of the available resources. Obviously, the project management office can get back to you if there are missing information, or one of the reviewers and one of the review staff there is the feeling that there are missing information, and that you will be asked to provide more. The process for neuroscientists is quite flexible, and please consider that at least just part of the resources can be made available even a bit before the final decision is made. So if you have that very urgent needs in terms of calculation, you can also get some access while waiting for the review process to be completed. For European scientists at large, as I mentioned, this is the access and allocation is provided through PRAISE calls managed by PRAISE peer review team. So we have dedicated calls that are run quarterly. This is the tentative schedule for the remaining calls of this year. So we have one call opening hopefully tomorrow. And then we will have one in June, and if possible, one in September. In this case, submissions are done by email. We don't have any online tool to support us, but just submission of the PDF or Word document by email is okay. You have here the link to the proposal template, which obviously is provided together with the terms of reference and other information in the PRAISE website when the call is open. But just to give you a feeling of what is requested, also in this case, obviously there is a section related to which are the scientific goals and objectives of the project. In particular, it is asked to report on which is the expected progress with respect to state of the art and which might be the scientific impact. Also in this case, if it is a request for an extension or for in time or for additional resources, information about the results of the previous project is expected to be provided. Then obviously the applicant is requested to provide information on the type of resources and the site that would be needed for the project, and which are the software and services that might be needed to complete the project successfully. Like say the applicant needs a specific algorithm or tools or software tool that need to be installed at the site to perform the research. This should be specified. Then there is a very short final section on data management, and if there are any special constraints like commercial software to be used or a few other information to complete the proposal. In this case, the timeline for evaluation is more or less in line with what happens for the human brain users. So we normally have 1 week for the administrative check, 2 weeks for technical reviews, and 3 weeks for the scientific reviews. So normally within 2 months, you would be notified about acceptance or rejection, or be requested for additional information if the panel feels that there are some missing bits of information that are needed to take a decision. Again, some writing advices. So again, most of all, the scientific part should try to be self-contained and comprehensive to facilitate the evaluation. it should be clearly specified when you indicate an amount of resources, how these resources have been estimated. If you have available, like showing scalability test or whatever is useful to understand why you are requesting a specific amount of resources and not another one. Also for this type of calls, obviously the request of combination of resources and services is very well considered. Please be aware that you can contact the ICEI team to verify if your request is technically feasible even before the submission. So to make sure that when you submit the request, you are already sure that at least technically this can be satisfied. Again, we might get back to you with questions or a request for additional information if needed by the panel to complete the evaluation. That was my overview of how the allocation mechanism works. So I'm happy to take any question.
Yeah, so Deborah, there is one question. Yep. Is it possible to receive the access longer than 12 months? And if yes, how?
No, okay, normally, no, the request should be for 12 months, but then extension can be easily be requested. Let's say when you are close to the end of your 12 months, you can request an extension in time. Normally, request of extension in time does not require a long time to be approved because simply it's just a technical check with the team, but normally it should be easily granted. So, but normally we prefer to have allocation of 12 months to start with, and then we can add extension if needed.
Okay, so I cannot see any other questions. So I'd like to invite all the attendees to, again, remind them that they can do the questions either via the question and answer option that you had at the bottom of the screen, or either using the chat function. Another one, what are the praise calls?
So basically, so ICEI is offering, the ICEI sites are offering the resources. And for the resources that we plan to offer to European researcher in general of any scientific domain, we decided to set up a collaboration with PRAISE, because PRAISE has a long and well-known history on offering computing resources. So we set up this collaboration. So they are basically managing the peer review, all the process of evaluation and decision on the proposal, while the actual resources are provided by the ICEI side. So it's just a collaboration that ICEI set up with PRAISE to help with the peer review process.
Is it still possible to go with praise from tomorrow?
The call is expected to open tomorrow, the next call, which is called 9. I'm not sure we'll actually be able to open it tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but indeed by the end of this week, the call will be open. You will see announcement when the call is open, both on the Fenix website. Renata will for sure put announcement on the Fenix website and both on the PRAISE website and social channels. So you will have a link, specific link where you will be able to access all the information about the available resources for the call and the link to the template I just presented. So hopefully the call will be open this week. So yes, you are welcome to apply. You will have more or less, the call will stay open for more or less 1 month. So you will have 1 month more or less to submit your application.
Yeah, just to continue with the ones that you said, I just posted in the chat the link on the Fenix website where all access are described, both the HBP, the Human Brain Projects, and also the praise calls. So as Deborah already mentioned, I'd like to invite all the attendees from this webinar to connect to the website, either the Fenix website or also our social media channels of Twitter and LinkedIn, where we do announce normally all our calls that are coming.
In the meantime, sorry, in the meantime, while we're waiting another couple of minutes, just be aware that you can always drop us an email through all our info, both to the website or the emails that are mentioned here in the slides. And the team will be happy to provide you any information that you cannot find in today's webinar, or something that you can think of later on.
I'm going to share now. If you could please fill in the chat, I just posted an evaluation questionnaire. It will only take you 2-3 minutes to fill it in. As a few questions, so it's really important for us to know your opinions, and also maybe have new topics for further webinars that we organize in the future. So I'd like also finally to thank not only our speaker Deborah today for the webinar, also our attendees for coming and also raising all these questions today. And I hope I'd like to invite you everyone to stay connected in all our social media networks. And I'm going to share my screen at the moment so that you can, wrong button, sorry, that you can see in the slide also all our social media networks and the address. So as Deborah already mentioned, you can feel free to send us an email on the ICEI coordination. I'll post it as well later on the chat. Also, we have the website, and I'd like to encourage you to visit it, where a lot of information is being included there from the ones that Deborah already explained. And of course, follow our social media networks, Twitter and LinkedIn. So again, thank you very much, and I hope we manage to meet each other again in further webinars. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.